I never thought an email would be the thing that shattered my marriage. It was just sitting there in Sam's inbox when I used his laptop to print some documents for work, a message from the hiring committee at his office. My stomach dropped before I even opened it. The first line said everything. "We regret to inform you." My name is Alara, and until that moment, I thought I had a pretty good handle on my life. Successful interior designer, loving wife, nice house in the suburbs, the whole package. But watching my husband's face as he walked through the door that evening, I realized how much of that perfect life was just carefully arranged window dressing. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice casual. "How was your day?" Sam loosened his tie, that familiar crease between his eyebrows deeper than usual. "Fine. Just another day at the office." He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Nothing interesting happened today?" His shoulders tensed. "What do you mean?" "Sam," I said softly, "I saw the email. I'm so sorry about the promotion." The change was instant. His face hardened, and something ugly flashed across his features. "You went through my emails?" "No, I was just using your laptop to print." "So you were snooping," he cut me off, his voice sharp enough to make me flinch. "Couldn't wait to see if your successful husband finally failed at something?" I stepped back, stunned. "That's not fair. I was worried about you." He laughed, but it wasn't the warm sound I was used to. "Worried? Please. You're probably thrilled. Now you can add this to your list of achievements: breadwinner wife, failing husband." "Where is this coming from?" I asked, my voice trembling. "I've always supported you." "Supported me?" He paced the kitchen, running his hands through his hair. "Do you know what it's like having to hear about your wife's latest success at every office party?" "Oh, Sam, I saw Alara's design in Modern Living. She's so talented. Meanwhile, I'm stuck in the same position I've been in for 5 years." "That's not my fault," I said, anger finally seeping into my voice. "I've worked hard for everything I've achieved." "And I haven't?" He grabbed his keys from the counter. "I need some air." "Sam, wait. Don't." He held up his hand. "Just don't." The front door slammed behind him, leaving me alone in our suddenly too quiet house. My phone buzzed, a text from Owen, my boss, about an exciting new project opportunity. Usually, this would have me jumping with joy, but now it felt like another crack in my marriage's foundation. I walked to our living room, looking at the space I'd so carefully designed. The modern art piece Sam had called pretentious. The expensive couch he said we couldn't afford. The awards on my desk that he used to celebrate with me but now barely acknowledged. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a notification from Sam's Instagram. He'd just checked in at the Copper Room, a bar near his office. In the photo's background, I could see a woman in a red dress, her hand on someone's arm. The caption read, "Sometimes you need friends who understand." I zoomed in on the photo, my hands shaking. The woman was Fiona Blake, Sam's colleague who'd been showing up in more and more of his stories lately. Always with a sympathetic smile, always standing just a little too close. That's when I realized the promotion wasn't really what this was about. And maybe, just maybe, my perfect marriage wasn't so perfect after all. I picked up my phone and texted Lydia, "Can you come over? I need to talk." Because something told me this was just the beginning of a storm that had been brewing for longer than I'd wanted to admit. Lydia arrived within 30 minutes, wine bottle in hand. She took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug before I could even speak. That's when the tears finally came. "I can't believe he's still not home," I said, checking my phone for the 100th time. The Instagram post from the Copper Room now showed 3 more photos, all with Fiona featured prominently. Her red dress a splash of warning across my screen. "Men can be such idiots when their ego gets bruised," Lydia said, pouring us each a generous glass. "But this feels different." Sam's never been the type to throw a public tantrum. "He's changed," I admitted, the words tasting bitter. "Ever since I landed the Peterson account last month, it's like he can barely look at me. Yesterday, he didn't even come to bed. Said he had work to catch up on." "At midnight?" I shrugged, but my stomach churned. "He's been staying late at the office a lot lately." "With Fiona?" Lydia's voice was careful, measured. They're just colleagues, I said automatically, but even I could hear the doubt in my voice. She's been helping him with some project. Honey, Lydia set down her glass. When was the last time you two actually talked? I mean really talked, not just about schedules or bills. The question hit harder than I expected. I thought back to our last real conversation, but everything blurred into a series of tense silences and clipped responses. I don't know. My phone buzzed. Owen again. The text read, "Big news about the Milan project. Need to discuss ASAP. Coffee tomorrow." "What's that about?" Lydia asked, noticing my frown. Owen's been hinting about this huge renovation project in Milan. It could be career-changing, but I trailed off, the unspoken words hanging heavy in the air. "But Sam would hate it," Lydia finished. Before I could respond, the front door opened. Sam stumbled in, his tie loose and eyes glazed. The smell of whiskey followed him. "Oh, we have company," he said, his words slightly slurred. "Having a nice girls' night? Talking about your successful careers?" Lydia stood up, gathering her things. "I should go." "No, stay." Sam's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Tell me, Lydia, does your husband feel like a failure too? Or is that just me?" "Sam," I warned, but he was already pulling out his phone. "Look at this." He thrust the screen at me. It showed an email thread between him and Fiona. "At least someone at work appreciates me. Fiona says I deserved that promotion. She says lots of nice things, actually." My hands shook as I read the messages. They were friendly enough on the surface, but there was an intimacy to them that made my chest tight. Late-night conversations about feeling undervalued, inside jokes I wasn't part of, subtle compliments that went beyond professional courtesy. "I'm going to bed," I said, standing up. "We can talk about this when you're sober." "There's nothing to talk about," he called after me. "You've got your big career. What do you need me for anyway?" I heard Lydia leaving, heard Sam fumbling in the kitchen, probably looking for more alcohol. But I just sat on our bed, staring at Owen's text about Milan. My phone lit up with a new notification. Fiona had tagged Sam in another photo from tonight. The caption read, "Sometimes the right person comes along at the wrong time." I clicked on her profile, scrolling through months of photos. There were dozens with Sam, each one showing a gradual shift in their body language, their smiles, their closeness. How had I missed this? The last thing I saw before turning off my phone was a message from Owen. "This opportunity won't wait forever, Alara. Time to decide what you really want." I lay down, fully clothed, on what used to be our bed. Tomorrow, I'd have to make a choice, fight for a marriage that might already be broken, or take a chance on a future that terrified and thrilled me in equal measure. Downstairs, I heard Sam's phone chime with another message. I didn't need to check to know who it was from. The coffee with Owen turned into something I never expected. Sitting across from him at our usual cafe, I couldn't focus on his excited description of the Milan project. Instead, my phone kept buzzing with notifications from my bank's fraud alert system. "Alara? Are you listening?" Owen's voice snapped me back to attention. "Sorry, it's just..." I showed him my phone screen. "Someone's been making large withdrawals from our joint account. 3 transactions in the past hour." Owen's expression shifted from enthusiasm to concern. "Sam?" I nodded, my hands shaking as I pulled up our account details. $5,000. Gone. Then another 3,000. And another 4,000. "I need to go," I said, gathering my things. "Can we discuss Milan tomorrow?" "Of course." "But Alara..." Owen hesitated. "Sometimes the universe has a way of forcing our hand." I barely heard him. My mind was racing as I drove to Sam's office, rehearsing what I'd say. But when I walked through the glass doors of the government building, I wasn't prepared for what I found. Sam's office was empty. Not just empty, cleared out. His nameplate was gone, his desk bare except for a small cardboard box. "Can I help you?" A woman's voice behind me. I turned to find Fiona, wearing that same red dress from the photos. "Where's Sam?" Her smile was perfectly practiced. "He didn't tell you?" "He resigned this morning." Something about a fresh start. The room tilted slightly. "He what?" "It's probably for the best," Fiona continued, her voice dripping with false sympathy. After losing the promotion and with everything else. Everything else? She touched my arm, and it took everything in me not to flinch. Oh, I assumed you knew. About us. The world stopped for a moment. Us. It started as just talks over coffee, Fiona said, dropping her voice. He was so lost, so overshadowed by your success. He needed someone who could understand, who could make him feel like a man again. Each word was a carefully placed knife. I stepped back, my heel catching on the carpet. Where is he now? He mentioned something about the airport. Her smile widened slightly. I think he needed some time to think. I ran. Through the office, down the stairs, barely registering the concerned looks from other employees. In my car, I pulled up our credit card statements. There it was, a first-class ticket to Vancouver. One way. My phone rang. Sam's face appeared on the screen. Don't bother coming home. His voice was cold, distant. I've taken what I need. You can have the rest. It's probably all paid for with your money anyway. Sam, what are you doing? We can talk about this. Talk? He laughed bitterly. Like you talked to me about Milan? I saw the contract on your desk this morning. You were going to take it without even discussing it with me. I haven't signed anything. It doesn't matter anymore. Fiona and I have plans. She believes in me, supports me. She doesn't make me feel small. By stealing our savings? By having an affair. My voice cracked. That makes you feel big? Silence. Then, I deserve better than living in your shadow. The line went dead. I sat in my car, staring at nothing, until my phone buzzed again. A new Instagram post from Fiona. A picture of her hand holding a plane ticket, matching wedding bands visible in the corner. The caption read, "Sometimes the biggest risks bring the greatest rewards." I drove home in a daze, only to find half our closet empty and his wedding ring on the dresser. But what broke me wasn't the missing clothes or the ring. It was finding his laptop open on the bed, displaying emails between him and Fiona dating back months. Plans, promises, secret meetings. A whole hidden life while I worked late trying to build our future. My phone buzzed one final time. Owen, Milan contract needs an answer by tomorrow. Your choice. I looked around our bedroom, now just my bedroom, and felt something shift inside me. This wasn't just about a failing marriage anymore. This was about justice, about consequences. I picked up my phone and typed, "I'll take it." When do I start? 3 days after Sam left, I found myself sitting in Owen's office, staring at the Milan contract. The opportunity was everything I'd dreamed of. A complete renovation of a historic palazzo, unlimited budget, complete creative control. But something else caught my eye, a familiar name in the investor list. Blake Industries, I said, looking up at Owen. Any relation to Fiona Blake? Owen shifted uncomfortably. Her father's company. They're the primary investors. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. How long have you known? Alara. Owen leaned forward. Sometimes business and personal lives intersect in ways we can't control. Did Sam know? When he was with her, did he know about this project? Before Owen could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Check your email. You deserve to know the truth. F.B. My hands shook as I opened my inbox. There it was, dozens of forwarded emails between Sam and Fiona, dating back months before his failed promotion. They'd been planning this, Sam feeding her information about government contracts, Fiona promising him a position in her father's company. My success wasn't just wounding his ego, it was threatening their scheme. I need air, I muttered, standing up so quickly my chair toppled over. The contract deadline is tomorrow, Owen called after me. We need your answer. I drove to our house, my house now, and found Lydia waiting on the porch. I brought wine and takeout, she said, but stopped when she saw my face. What happened? Inside, I showed her the emails. It wasn't just an affair, I said, my voice hollow. It was a business plan. They needed inside information about the city's development projects and Sam. That son of a bitch, Lydia whispered, scrolling through the messages. Have you called a lawyer? Not yet. I've been too busy trying to figure out how I missed all the signs. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Fiona. Sam never loved you. but he did love what your success could do for him. For us. Sorry it had to end this way. I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. You know what's funny? The Milan project, it's backed by her family's company. If I take it, I'll essentially be working for the woman my husband left me for. Or, Lydia said slowly, you'll be in the perfect position to expose their little scheme. I looked at her. What do you mean? Think about it. Sam and Fiona used your success to set up their plan. Why not use their own project to bring them down? My phone rang, Owen again. Alara, I need your answer about Milan. And there's something else you should know. The government contracts Sam was handling. There are irregularities. The ethics committee is launching an investigation. I thought about Sam and Fiona, probably laughing in Vancouver, thinking they'd played me perfectly. I thought about the years I dimmed my own light to protect his ego. I thought about justice and revenge and how sometimes they're the same thing. Owen, I said, my voice steady for the first time in days, I'll take the project. But I have one condition. Name it. I want complete access to all financial records and communications related to Blake Industries' involvement. Every email, every meeting minute, every transaction. There was a long pause. You know what you're asking for? Yes, I said, watching the sunset paint our living room walls blood red. I know exactly what I'm asking for. After hanging up, I opened my laptop and began typing, Dear Mr. Blake. I'm honored to accept the position as lead designer for the Milan Palazzo renovation. I look forward to working closely with your company to ensure complete transparency throughout this project. Lydia read over my shoulder. You're really doing this? I thought about Sam's words. I deserve better than living in your shadow. Maybe he was right, but not in the way he meant. Yes, I said, hitting send. It's time to step into the light. The ethics committee didn't waste any time. 2 weeks after I signed the Milan contract, they called me in for questioning. I sat in a sterile conference room, watching the investigator flip through a stack of documents. Mrs. Mitchell, or should I say Miss Mitchell now? She glanced at her notes. We're particularly interested in these emails between your husband and Fiona Blake. Ex-husband, I corrected automatically. And I only discovered those emails after he left. Convenient timing, she said, her pen tapping against the table. Right before you accepted the Blake Industries project. My stomach dropped. What are you implying? Some might see it as suspicious, you taking a position with the very company your husband allegedly shared confidential information with. Almost like a coordinated effort. The room suddenly felt too small. Through the glass walls, I could see Owen pacing in the hallway, running his hands through his hair. I had nothing to do with their scheme, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. And yet you're now positioned to benefit from it. My phone buzzed, another message from Sam. They'd been coming more frequently lately, each one more desperate than the last. This one read, they're investigating me. You have to help. Tell them you knew about the development plans all along. I switched off my phone. Miss Mitchell. The investigator leaned forward. Is there something you'd like to share? Actually, yes. I pulled out my laptop. I've been gathering documentation since I started the Milan project. Every irregular transaction, every suspicious meeting between Blake Industries and the government office, including ones that happened before Sam and Fiona's relationship began. Her eyebrows rose. You've been conducting your own investigation? Let's just say I had motivation to look closely at their operation. Later, in Owen's office, he poured us both a drink. You're playing a dangerous game, Alara. Blake Industries isn't just some small-time operation. Neither am I said, but my hands shook as I took the glass. My phone lit up with a text from Lydia. Turn on the news. Now. Owen flipped on the office TV. There was Sam, standing outside the Vancouver courthouse, Fiona notably absent. The headline scrolled beneath, Former Deputy Director faces corruption charges. I trusted the wrong people, Sam was saying, his voice breaking. I let my personal feelings cloud my judgment. But I wasn't the mastermind. Fiona Blake and her father. The feed cut off abruptly. My phone rang, a Vancouver number. Sam. Don't, Owen warned, but I answered anyway. Alara, please, Sam's voice was desperate. Fiona's gone. She took everything, the money, the evidence, everything. Her father's claiming he knew nothing about it. I'm going to lose everything. You already lost everything, I said quietly. The day you decided I wasn't enough. I was wrong. I see that now. But they're going to pin this all on me unless. Unless what, Sam? Unless I help you pin it on someone else. Silence. Then, you're really going through with this Milan project? Yes. Even knowing what they'll do to me? I thought about all the nights I'd dimmed my light for him, all the achievements I'd downplayed to protect his ego. You did this to yourself. Then I hope you can live with what happens next. The line went dead. Minutes later, my email pinged. A message from Blake Industries' board of directors, requesting an urgent meeting about the Milan project. Owen read over my shoulder. What are you going to do? I looked at the TV, still showing Sam's face, now with a new headline. Breaking. Blake Industries announces major restructuring. I'm going to Milan, I said, standing up. And I'm going to finish what they started. Even if it means destroying them? I thought about Sam's words. I hope you can live with what happens next. Especially if it means destroying them. The truth was, I'd already lost everything that mattered. Now it was just a question of who would be left standing when the dust settled. Milan in December wasn't the romantic escape I'd imagined. Instead of finding peace, I found myself drowning in Blake Industries' web of lies. Every document I uncovered revealed another layer of corruption, each one leading back to Fiona and her father, and Sam. The palazzo renovation was just a front. The real money was flowing through shell companies, hidden in plain sight within the project's inflated budgets. My phone lit up with a message from Owen, turn on CNN. There she was, Fiona Blake, standing outside her father's corporate headquarters in London. I want to thank the Ethics Committee for their thorough investigation, she was saying. And I especially want to thank Alara Mitchell, whose work on the Milan project helped expose these irregularities. My coffee cup slipped from my hand, shattering on the marble floor of my temporary apartment. As of today, I am officially cooperating with authorities, Fiona continued. The evidence will show that Sam Reynolds acted alone, using his position and his relationship with me to orchestrate this scheme. Another message from Owen. She's throwing you under the bus too. Check your email. The board's message was brief. Due to concerns about potential involvement in the ongoing investigation, your contract is suspended pending review. My phone rang, Sam's lawyer. They're saying you knew, he said without preamble. That you helped Sam access the confidential files, used your position with Blake Industries to cover the trail. That's ridiculous. They have emails, Alara. From your account to Sam's, discussing development plans months before they were public. My blood ran cold. I never sent any. They look real. Very real. After hanging up, I stood at my window, watching Milan's Christmas lights twinkle mockingly. My phone buzzed again, an unknown number. Hello, Alara. Fiona's voice was silk smooth. I hope you're enjoying Italy. How did you do it? Do what? Expose the truth? Or set you up to take the fall? She laughed softly. You know, Sam told me you were smart. Said you'd figure out our plan eventually. But he never thought you'd try to use it against us. Where is he? Oh, somewhere safe. Unlike you. She paused. You should have stayed in your lane, Alara. Stuck to picking paint colors and fabric samples. Now you're going to lose everything. Your career, your reputation, maybe even your freedom. My laptop pinged. Another email from Blake Industries board. My access to all project files had been revoked. In the Palazzo group chat, my team members were already distancing themselves, their messages professional but cold. Then came the final blow, a video link from Lydia. It showed Sam at a press conference, looking haunted but determined. I need to set the record straight, he was saying. My ex-wife, Alara Mitchell, wasn't just aware of these transactions. She orchestrated them. Her success in the design world was built on insider trading and corrupt deals. I was blind to it because I loved her. The room spun. I grabbed the windowsill for support, watching my reflection in the glass, a woman I barely recognized anymore. My phone buzzed one last time. Owen, FBI wants to question you. Don't say anything until I get there. I'm on my way to Milan. Outside, photographers were already gathering below my building. Someone had leaked my address. I opened my laptop to transfer money from my accounts, but they were frozen. Every credit card declined. Even my return flight reservation had been canceled. In the bathroom mirror, I finally let myself cry. Not for Sam's betrayal or Fiona's manipulation, but for my own naivety. I'd thought I was playing their game, but they'd been playing me all along. A final message flashed on my phone from Sam's personal number. "I'm sorry it had to be this way, but you forced our hand. Some battles aren't worth fighting." I looked around my beautiful Milan apartment, paid for by Blake Industries, wondering how many hours I had left here. How many hours before everything I'd built came crashing down? Then I noticed something odd about Sam's message. A small detail that didn't fit. And for the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of hope. Because Sam had finally made a mistake. And maybe, just maybe, it would be enough to bring them all down. Sam's message contained something only I would notice, a reference to our first date at Bella's, spelled with one L instead of two. It was our private joke, our secret code. He was trying to tell me something. I met him at midnight in a small cafe near Milan's Navigli district, my laptop and phone both left behind. The place was empty except for an old man reading a newspaper and a barista wiping down tables. "You look terrible," I said, sliding into the seat across from him. Dark circles under his eyes, expensive suit wrinkled. This wasn't the polished Sam from the press conference. "They're watching everything," he whispered. "Phones, emails, bank accounts. Fiona's father. He's not just a businessman, Alara. The corruption goes deeper than we thought." I laughed bitterly. "There is no we, Sam. You made sure of that." His hands shook as he pushed a USB drive across the table. "I made copies before Fiona could delete everything. The real transactions, the shell companies, the bribes. It's all here. Why should I trust you? Because I'm dead if you don't." He glanced at the door. "Fiona never loved me. I was just convenient. Someone they could manipulate, then destroy. But you." He swallowed hard. "You were always stronger than me. That's why I resented you so much." The barista's phone rang, making us both jump. "Why now?" I asked. "Why help me after everything you've done?" "Because." The cafe door chimed. Fiona walked in, elegant as ever in a red coat that matched her lipstick. "How predictable," she said, sliding into the seat next to Sam. The desperate husband reaches out to his wronged wife. Very romantic. Two men in dark suits appeared at the door. The USB, Fiona held out her hand. "Now." I reached for it, but Sam's foot pressed against mine under the table, our old signal for trust me. "It's fake," Sam said quietly. "The real evidence is already with Interpol." Fiona's smile faltered. "You're bluffing." "Check your phone," I said. She pulled it out, her face paling as she read. "That's impossible. All the accounts were secure. Except the one you used to frame me," I said. "The one you accessed using Sam's old laptop, the one I'd used for work. The one that still had my security software installed." The old man with the newspaper stood up, revealing an Interpol badge. The barista pulled out handcuffs. "You really should have checked those emails more carefully," Sam said. "The ones you forged from Alara?" The metadata showed they were created 3 days after I left for Vancouver, when Alara was already in Milan. Fiona lunged for the door, but the agents were faster. As they led her away, she turned to Sam. "They'll still think you were involved. You'll lose everything." "I already lost everything," he said, looking at me. The moment I forgot what mattered. Later, outside the cafe, Sam handed me another USB drive. "The real one," he said. "Everything they did, everything I helped them do. Use it however you want. Why didn't you just tell me the truth from the beginning? They were watching too closely. I had to make them think they'd won." He stepped back. "I don't expect forgiveness, Alara. But I couldn't let them destroy you too. What will you do now?" "Testify. Face the consequences." He smiled sadly. "Maybe finally learn to stand in someone else's light without feeling shadows." I watched him walk away, the USB drive heavy in my pocket. My phone buzzed. Owen, with news that Blake Industries was facing a major investigation. The Milan project would continue, but under new ownership. The night air was cold, but for the first time in months, I felt warm. Not because of victory or revenge, but because I finally understood sometimes the greatest act of love is letting go. I turned toward home, my real home, not the borrowed luxury of a corrupt company, ready to build something new. Something entirely my own. 1 year later, I stood in the completed palazzo, now a boutique hotel that bore little resemblance to Blake Industries' original plans. The morning light streamed through restored Renaissance windows, casting patterns across the marble floors I'd chosen. My first solo project, built on truth instead of lies. "It's beautiful," Lydia said, running her hand along a wall I'd insisted on stripping back to its original stone. "You did it, Alara. All by yourself." Not quite by myself. The package that had arrived at my office last week proved that. Inside was a letter from Sam, written the night before everything fell apart, before Fiona, before the corruption scandal, before he chose pride over love. "I see your light," he'd written, "and it terrifies me. Not because it dims mine, but because it shows me who I really am. I hope someday I learn to be worthy of standing in it." The letter came with divorce papers already signed and documents transferring his share of our house entirely to me. My phone buzzed. "Owen, with news about the hotel's opening night. The guest list is full," he said, "including some interesting names." Sam? No, but his testimony helped bring down half the corrupt officials in the city. He's doing well in the witness protection program, from what I hear. I walked to the hotel's rooftop garden, my favorite space in the whole building. The herbs I'd planted were thriving, their scent mixing with the morning air. "Speaking of fresh starts," Lydia followed me up, "have you met the new owner yet? I hear he's single." I laughed, thinking of the dating apps she'd tried to get me to join. "I'm not ready." "You mean you're scared?" "No," I said, surprising myself with how true it felt. "I'm just content." A movement caught my eye, a dog wandering through the garden, no collar, but well-fed. He approached cautiously, tail wagging. "Hey there," I knelt down. "Are you lost?" He pressed his head against my hand, and something in my chest loosened. The shelter had called yesterday about a rescue needing a home. Maybe it wasn't just the dog who needed rescuing. "What will you call him?" Lydia asked as the dog settled at my feet. "Chance," I said, and he looked up as if he already knew his name. My phone buzzed again, an email from a journalist wanting to interview me about surviving betrayal and building success. I deleted it without responding. Some stories don't need to be told, they need to be lived. The morning crowd was gathering below, Milan coming alive with possibilities. Soon the hotel would open, carrying my name instead of Blake Industries. Soon I'd start new projects, meet new people, face new challenges. But for now, I sat in my rooftop garden with my best friend and a dog who'd chosen me, watching the sun rise over a city that had taught me the difference between revenge and justice, between letting go and moving on. The last piece of Sam's letter had said, "I hope you find someone who knows how to love your light without trying to dim it." I'm sorry I couldn't be that person. I folded the letter away, not in anger or pain, but with gratitude. Sometimes the greatest gift someone can give you is showing you who you are without them. Chance nudged my hand, ready to explore his new home. Below, the hotel staff was arriving, the day beginning, life moving forward. "Ready?" Lydia asked, but she wasn't just talking about heading downstairs. I looked at my reflection in the garden's small fountain, a woman I finally recognized, standing in her own light. "Yes," I said. "I think I am." We walked down together, Chance trotting beside us, into whatever came next. The future wasn't certain, but then again, it never is. The only certainty was that this time, I'd face it on my own terms, in my own way, in my own light. And that was more than enough.
I smoothed my dress for the 100th time, taking a deep breath before stepping into the grand foyer of the Finnegan estate. The chandelier sparkled overhead, casting a warm glow on the polished marble floors. This was it, my official introduction to Daniel's family as his wife. "There you are, darling," Daniel said, appearing at my side. He squeezed my hand reassuringly. "Ready to meet everyone?" I nodded, forcing a smile. "As ready as I'll ever be." We made our way through the crowd of well-dressed guests, stopping to chat with various aunts, uncles, and cousins. I I tried to keep track of names and faces, but it was overwhelming. Just as I was starting to relax, I heard a sharp voice behind me. "So this is the new Mrs. Reed." I turned to find myself face to face with Adelaide Finnegan, my mother-in-law. Her critical gaze swept over me, lingering on my simple cocktail dress. "It's lovely to finally meet you, Mrs. Finnegan," I said. Extending my hand, she ignored it, instead lifting her crystal wine glass. "I do hope you'll make an effort to learn about wine, dear. It is the family business, after all." Daniel stepped in. "Mom, Ella's already quite knowledgeable about—" "Oh, please, Daniel," Adelaide cut him off. "I'm sure your physical therapist wife has many talents, but I doubt wine appreciation is one of them." I felt my cheeks burning. "Actually, Adelaide!" A booming voice interrupted. Gregory Finnegan approached, clapping a hand on Daniel's shoulder. "There you are. I see you've met our Ella." Adelaide's lips thinned. "Yes, we were just discussing her expertise." Gregory turned to me with a warm smile. "Don't let this one intimidate you," he said, jerking a thumb at his wife. "I'm sure you'll fit right in." "Thank you, Mr. Finnegan," I said gratefully. "Please call me Gregory. We're family now." Adelaide's nostrils flared. "Speaking of family, I believe it's time for the toast. Daniel, come along." As they walked away, I overheard Adelaide hissing, "Really, Daniel, a physical therapist? What were you thinking?" I blinked back tears, trying to compose myself. A server passed by with a tray of wine glasses, and I grabbed one, downing half of it in one gulp. "Whoa there," a voice said. I turned to see a woman in her late 50s smiling at me. "First time meeting Adelaide?" I nodded ruefully. "That obvious?" She laughed. "I'm Rosemary, a distant cousin. Don't worry, we've all been there. Adelaide can be challenging." "That's putting it mildly," I muttered. Rosemary patted my arm. "Just remember, you married Daniel, not his mother. Now come on, let's get you another drink before the toast." We made our way to the bar, where Rosemary ordered 2 glasses of red wine. As we waited, I noticed Adelaide glaring at us from across the room. "So, Ella," Rosemary said, "tell me about yourself. How did you and Daniel meet?" I launched into the story, grateful for the distraction. Just as I was finishing, Daniel appeared at my side. "There you are," he said, kissing my cheek. "I see you've met Rosemary." "Yes, she's been very kind," I replied. Daniel lowered his voice. "Listen, I'm sorry about my mother. She'll come around, I promise." Before I could respond, Gregory clinked his glass for attention. "If I could have everyone's attention, please. I'd like to propose a toast to the newest member of our family, Ella Reed." All eyes turned to me, and I felt my face flush. Adelaide's gaze was particularly piercing. Gregory continued, "To Ella, who has already brought so much joy to our Daniel, may she always feel welcome in our home and our hearts." As glasses clinked around me, I took a sip of wine, praying I wouldn't choke. Suddenly, Adelaide's voice rang out, and perhaps Ella would like to say a few words. After all, she is joining quite a prestigious family. I'm sure she has some thoughts on the matter. The room fell silent. Daniel squeezed my hand, but I knew I had to face this on my own. Taking a deep breath, I stepped forward, my wine glass trembling slightly in my hand. I never expected a wine magazine to be the catalyst for World War III in the Finnegan household, but here we were. The latest issue of Vintner's Voice had just arrived, and Adelaide's shrill voice echoed through the manor. "This is preposterous," she shrieked, storming into the living room, where Daniel and I were enjoying a quiet morning. "How dare they give our Celestial Cabernet only 88 points? It's an outrage," Daniel sighed, setting down his coffee. "Mom, it's just one review. We can't expect top marks every time." Adelaide's eyes narrowed. "Just one review? This could ruin us, Daniel. Our reputation—" "Is still intact," I interjected, trying to keep my voice calm. 88 points is still a good score." She whirled on me, her face flushed. "What would you know about it? You probably can't tell the difference between a fine wine and grape juice." I bit my tongue, reminding myself that engaging would only make things worse. Daniel stood up, placing a hand on his mother's arm. "Mom, that's enough. Ella's right. We shouldn't overreact." Adelaide jerked away from him, flipping through the magazine. Suddenly, she froze, her eyes widening. What is this?" I leaned forward, curious despite myself. There, on the page, was a glowing review of a wine I'd suggested for our new budget-friendly line. 95 points and a Critics' Choice Award. "Impossible," Adelaide muttered. This swill? It can't be." "That's wonderful news," Gregory said, entering the room. Ella, this was your idea, wasn't it? Well done. Adelaide's head snapped up, her gaze locking onto me with laser-like intensity. You, she hissed. You did this on purpose, didn't you? To humiliate me? I felt the blood drain from my face. What? No, of course not. I just thought. You thought you'd show up the family expert, is that it? Adelaide advanced on me, her voice rising. Little Miss Nobody from nowhere, thinking she can waltz in and take over. Daniel stepped between us. Mom, stop it. This isn't Ella's fault. Oh, defend her. Why don't you? Adelaide sneered. Your precious wife, who probably learned everything she knows about wine from the bargain bin at the grocery store. The room fell silent. I could feel tears pricking at my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Gregory cleared his throat awkwardly. Adelaide, that's quite enough, he said firmly. Ella's contribution has clearly been valuable. We should be celebrating, not. Celebrating? Adelaide laughed bitterly. Oh yes, let's celebrate the death of standards in this family. First Daniel marries a commoner, and now we're praising cheap plunk. What's next? Boxed wine? I couldn't take it anymore. Standing up, I faced Adelaide directly. Mrs. Finnegan, I understand you're upset about the review, but that doesn't give you the right to insult me or my background. I may not have grown up in your world, but I'm here now, and I'm trying my best to contribute. Adelaide's eyes glittered dangerously. Oh, you're contributing all right, to the downfall of everything this family has built. You think you can just walk in here with your middle-class tastes and change everything? That's enough, Daniel shouted, startling us all. Mom, I love you, but I won't stand here and let you talk to my wife like this. Ella is family now, whether you like it or not. Adelaide recoiled as if she'd been slapped. For a moment, I thought she might apologize. Instead, she straightened her spine and looked down her nose at me. Family? She said coldly. We'll see about that. This isn't over, Ella. Not by a long shot. With that, she swept out of the room, leaving a stunned silence in her wake. Daniel put his arm around me, pulling me close. I'm so sorry, he whispered. I never thought she'd react like this. Gregory sighed heavily. I'll talk to her. Try not to worry, Ella. This will blow over. But, as I watched him leave, following in Adelaide's wake, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Adelaide's words echoed in my mind. This isn't over. I had a sinking feeling she was right, and that the worst was yet to come. The annual Finnegan family reunion was in full swing, and I felt like a fish out of water. Everywhere I turned, there were cousins, aunts, and uncles I'd never met, all eyeing me with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. Adelaide's influence was clear. Whispers followed me like a shadow. There's Daniel's new wife, I overheard one elderly aunt say. The physical therapist. Can you imagine? I gritted my teeth and plastered on a smile, determined not to let them see how much it hurt. Daniel squeezed my hand reassuringly as we made our rounds. Don't let them get to you, he murmured. They'll come around eventually. But as the day wore on, I wasn't so sure. Every attempt I made to connect was met with polite disinterest or thinly veiled disdain. Even Gregory, usually my ally, seemed distant and preoccupied. Things came to a head during dinner. I was seated between Daniel and Rosemary, grateful for at least one friendly face. Adelaide held court at the head of the table, regaling everyone with stories of the family's winemaking legacy. Of course, maintaining our standards is of utmost importance, she said, her eyes flicking to me. We can't let just anyone influence our process. I felt Daniel tense beside me. Before he could speak, I laid a hand on his arm. It's okay, I whispered. Let it go. But Adelaide wasn't finished. Daniel, darling, why don't you tell everyone about the new vintage you're working on? The one using traditional methods? Daniel cleared his throat. Actually, Mom, I've been experimenting with some new techniques lately. Ella had some interesting ideas. Ella? Adelaide's laugh was like shattered glass. And what, pray tell, does a physical therapist know about winemaking? The table fell silent. I could feel every eye on me, waiting for my response. My cheeks burned, but I forced myself to meet Adelaide's gaze. I may not have grown up in the wine industry, I said quietly, but I've been learning, and sometimes a fresh perspective can lead to innovation. Adelaide's eyes narrowed. Innovation? Is that what we're calling it now? Diluting generations of expertise with amateur opinions? That's enough, Mom, Daniel said sharply. Ella's ideas have merit. The critics seemed to think so, anyway. A collective gasp went around the table. Adelaide's face turned an alarming shade of red. "How dare you bring that up here?" she hissed. "In front of the entire family." "Why not?" Daniel shot back. "Aren't we supposed to celebrate each other's successes?" The tension in the room was palpable. I wanted to disappear, to sink into the floor and vanish. But I forced myself to sit up straight, refusing to be cowed. Adelaide stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "I will not sit here and be insulted in my own home. Daniel, when you're ready to remember where your loyalties should lie, you know where to find me." With that, she stormed out of the dining room. An uncomfortable silence descended, broken only by the clink of silverware as people awkwardly resumed eating. Gregory sighed heavily. "I apologize for that, everyone. Please enjoy your meal." As dinner wrapped up, I retreated to the terrace, needing a moment alone. The cool night air was a balm to my frayed nerves. I heard footsteps behind me and turned, expecting to see Daniel. Instead, it was Gregory. "Quite a show in there," he said, joining me at the railing. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. "You know," Gregory continued, "Adelaide wasn't always like this. She used to be kinder, more open to new ideas." "What changed?" I asked softly. Gregory's eyes were distant. "Time, pressure, the weight of expectations, carrying on a family legacy." I turned to face him fully. "Mr. Finnegan, Gregory, I want you to know that I'm not trying to change everything. I respect this family's history. I just want to contribute, to be a part of it." He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "I believe you, Ella. And for what it's worth, I think you're good for Daniel. For all of us, really." Just then, we heard raised voices from inside. Daniel and Adelaide were arguing, their words muffled, but their tones clear. "I should go," I said, moving towards the door. Gregory caught my arm. "Ella, wait. There's something you should know about Adelaide, something that might explain." But before he could finish, the terrace doors burst open. Daniel stood there, his face a mask of anger and hurt. "That's it," he said, his voice shaking. "I'm done. We're leaving." As he took my hand and led me away, I caught one last glimpse of Adelaide's face through the window. The triumph in her eyes sent a chill down my spine. Whatever Gregory had been about to tell me, I had a feeling things were about to get much, much worse. The tension in the Finnegan household was palpable as we gathered for the monthly family meeting. Daniel and I sat side by side, our hands clasped tightly under the table. Adelaide's eyes bore into us from across the room, her lips pursed in a thin line of disapproval. Gregory cleared his throat. "Now, as you all know, our annual charity gala is coming up. We need to finalize the wine selection for the event." Before anyone could speak, Adelaide's voice cut through the air like a knife. "I nominate Ella to lead the wine selection committee this year." My head snapped up in shock. Daniel's grip on my hand tightened. "Mom, that's not fair," he protested. "Ella's still learning about—" "Oh," Adelaide's eyebrow arched. "I thought you said her ideas had merit. Surely she's up to the task?" I could feel the trap closing in around me. If I refused, I'd be admitting my inadequacy. If I accepted, I'd be setting myself up for failure in front of the entire wine community. Taking a deep breath, I met Adelaide's gaze. I'd be honored to lead the committee. A flicker of surprise crossed Adelaide's face before she masked it with a smug smile. "Wonderful. I'm sure you'll do your best." As the meeting adjourned, I felt a tap on my shoulder. It was Rosemary, her eyes filled with concern. "Ella, dear, are you sure about this? The gala is a big deal. The wrong choice could be disastrous for the family's reputation." I nodded, trying to project more confidence than I felt. "I know, but I have to try." Over the next few weeks, I threw myself into research. I consulted wine experts, pored over vintage charts, and tasted more wines than I could count. Daniel supported me every step of the way, but I could see the strain it was putting on him. One evening, as I was finalizing my selections, Daniel entered our study looking troubled. "Ella, I just got off the phone with Mom. She's not happy with your choices." I sighed, rubbing my temples. Of course she's not. "What did she say?" Daniel hesitated. "She thinks they're too unconventional. She's threatening to go to the board if you don't change them." I felt a surge of anger. "She can't do that. This is my responsibility now." I know, Daniel said, pulling me into a hug. "We'll figure it out." The night before the gala, I was doing one last check of the wine cellar when I heard footsteps behind me. I turned to see Adelaide, her face unreadable in the dim light. "Mrs. Finnegan," I said cautiously, "can I help you with something?" She moved closer, her eyes never leaving mine. "I just wanted to see how our little sommelier was doing. Nervous?" I straightened my spine. "No, I'm confident in my choices." Adelaide's laugh was cold. "Oh, my dear, confidence won't save you when you serve subpar wine to some of the most discerning palates in the country." As she turned to leave, she paused. "You know, it's not too late to change your mind. I'd be happy to assist you." I shook my head. "Thank you, but I've made my decision." "Very well," she said softly. "On your head be it." The morning of the gala dawned bright and clear. As I entered the cellar to begin preparations, something felt off. I approached the cases containing my carefully selected wines, my heart pounding. With trembling hands, I opened the first bottle, bringing it to my nose. The acrid smell hit me immediately. Corked. I grabbed another bottle, then another. All ruined. Panic rose in my throat as the realization hit me. Someone had tampered with the wine, and I had a sickening feeling I knew exactly who was responsible. My mind raced. The gala was hours away. Hundreds of guests would be arriving soon. I had no time to source new wines, and using the backup selection would be admitting defeat. As I stood there, surrounded by spoiled wine, I knew I had to make a choice. I could either admit defeat and let Adelaide win, or I could find a way to turn this disaster into an opportunity. Taking a deep breath, I pulled out my phone. It was time to call in some favors and take the biggest risk of my life. The gala was in full swing, and I felt like I was walking on eggshells. My last-minute wine selections had arrived just in time, thanks to a few frantic calls to some industry contacts I'd made. As I surveyed the room, I could see guests mingling, crystal glasses in hand, none the wiser to the chaos that had preceded this moment. "Ella, darling." Adelaide's voice cut through the crowd. She glided towards me, a predatory smile on her face. "How are your selections being received?" I forced a smile. "Quite well, thank you. The Malbec seems to be a particular hit." Adelaide's eyes narrowed. "Is that so? How unexpected." Before I could respond, Gregory appeared at my side. "Ella, my dear, I must say I'm impressed. The wines are exquisite. Where did you source that Chenin Blanc?" I opened my mouth to answer, but Adelaide cut in. "Yes, Ella, do tell us. I'm sure we'd all love to know where you found such unique choices at the last minute." The accusation in her tone was clear. I felt a bead of sweat form on my brow. Suddenly, a commotion near the buffet table caught everyone's attention. One of the guests, an influential wine critic, was doubled over, retching violently. "Oh my God," someone gasped. "Is he all right?" As chaos erupted around us, Adelaide's voice rose above the din. "It must be the wine. Ella, what have you done?" All eyes turned to me. I felt the room spinning, my carefully laid plans crumbling around me. "No, that's impossible. I tasted everything myself. It was fine." Gregory stepped forward, his face grave. "Ella, I think you'd better explain what's going on." With trembling hands, I recounted the discovery of the spoiled wine and my scramble to replace it. As I spoke, I saw doubt and suspicion creep into the faces of those around me. Adelaide's triumphant smirk was almost unbearable. "You see? I told you she wasn't up to this task. Now she's poisoned our guests." "That's not true," I protested. "Someone tampered with the original selection. I had to." "Tampered?" Adelaide gasped, feigning shock. "Are you accusing someone in this family of sabotage?" The tension in the room was palpable. I could see Daniel pushing his way through the crowd, Fidzas, concern etched on his face. But before he could reach me, Gregory held up a hand. "Enough," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "Ella, these are serious accusations. Do you have any proof?" I hesitated, my mind racing. I don't, but—" "Then I think it's best if you leave," Gregory said, his disappointment evident. "We'll discuss this later." As security began to escort me out, I caught sight of Adelaide's smug expression. Something inside me snapped. I couldn't let her win. Not like this. "Wait," I called out, my voice stronger than I felt. "There's something you all need to know." The room fell silent. Even Adelaide looked taken aback by my sudden outburst. "I may not have proof of the tampering," I said, my heart pounding, "but I do have proof that the wines I served tonight are not responsible for what happened. Because they're not the wines I originally selected." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Gregory's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" Taking a deep breath, I launched into the full story. The spoiled wine, my frantic calls, the last-minute substitutions. As I spoke, I saw realization dawning on some faces, skepticism on others. If you don't believe me, I finished, check the cellar. The original ruined bottles are still there. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, to my surprise, Rosemary stepped forward. "I'll go with you," she said. "I want to see for myself." As we turned to leave, I caught Adelaide's eye. The look of fury and fear on her face told me everything I needed to know. This was far from over, but for the first time, I felt like I might have a fighting chance. Gregory's voice stopped us at the door. "Ella," he said, his tone unreadable. "When we return, I expect a full explanation, and if what you're saying is true, there will be consequences." I nodded, squaring my shoulders. As we headed for the cellar, I knew that whatever happened next would change everything. The truth was about to come out, and there was no turning back now. The cellar was eerily quiet as Rosemary and I descended the stairs, followed closely by Gregory and a handful of curious guests. The weight of the moment pressed down on me, making each step feel like a mile. "Here," I said, my voice echoing in the cavernous space. "This is where I found the spoiled wine." I led them to the rack where I'd made my grim discovery earlier that day. With trembling hands, I pulled out a bottle and uncorked it. The acrid smell of vinegar filled the air, causing several people to recoil. "Good Lord," Gregory muttered, his face pale. This is unthinkable." Rosemary stepped forward, her brow furrowed. "Ella, dear, when exactly did you discover this?" I recounted the events of the morning, watching as understanding dawned on their faces. As I finished, Rosemary's eyes widened. "I saw Adelaide down here early this morning," she said slowly. "She said she was doing a final check, but—" A collective gasp went through the group. Gregory's face hardened. "Are you certain, Rosemary?" She nodded, her expression grim. "Positive. I didn't think anything of it at the time, but now—" Before anyone could respond, we heard footsteps on the stairs. Adelaide appeared, her face a mask of concern that didn't quite reach her eyes. "What's going on down here?" she asked, her gaze darting between us. "Shouldn't we be attending to our guests?" Gregory turned to face his wife, his voice low and dangerous. "Adelaide, did you tamper with the wine?" For a moment, Adelaide's composure slipped. I saw fear flash in her eyes before she recovered. "Gregory, darling, what are you talking about? Of course not." "Then how do you explain this?" I asked, holding up the spoiled bottle. Adelaide's eyes narrowed. "Well, clearly you've made a mistake in your selections. I told you she wasn't up to this task, Gregory." But her words lacked their usual venom. I could see doubt creeping into the faces around us. Suddenly, Daniel burst into the cellar, his face flushed. "What's going on? Ella, are you okay?" Before I could answer, Rosemary spoke up. "Daniel, I'm afraid we've uncovered something rather disturbing. It appears your mother may have sabotaged Ella's wine selection." Daniel's face went from confusion to shock to anger in a matter of seconds. "Mom, is this true?" Adelaide's carefully constructed facade began to crumble. "Daniel, sweetheart, you can't possibly believe—" "I saw you, Adelaide," Rosemary interrupted. "This morning in the cellar. You were here alone with the wine." The silence that followed was deafening. Adelaide's gaze darted around the room, looking for an ally and finding none. Finally, her shoulders sagged. "You don't understand," she whispered. "I was trying to protect us, our legacy. She jabbed a finger at me, was going to ruin everything with her common tastes and lack of refinement." The admission hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. I felt Daniel's hand slip into mine, squeezing tightly. Gregory's voice, when he spoke, was filled with a quiet fury. "Adelaide, do you realize what you've done? You've not only betrayed our family, but potentially put our guests at risk. This is unforgivable." Adelaide's face crumpled. "Gregory, please." But he held up a hand, silencing her. "We'll discuss this later. For now, I think it's best if you retire to your room. We have a gala to salvage." As Adelaide was led away, her sobs echoing through the cellar, I felt a strange mix of vindication and sadness. I'd won, but at what cost? Gregory turned to me, his expression unreadable. "Ella, I owe you an apology, and I believe we all owe you our gratitude. Your quick thinking may have saved us from disaster." The others murmured in agreement, but I barely heard them. My mind was reeling, trying to process everything that had just happened. As we made our way back upstairs, Daniel pulled me aside. "Ella, I'm so sorry. I never thought my mother would go this far." I looked into his eyes, seeing the pain and conflict there. "What happens now?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Daniel shook his head. "I don't know, but whatever comes next, we'll face it together." As we rejoined the gala, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The truth was out, but the real battle was far from over. The gala had devolved into a maelstrom of whispers and sidelong glances. As Daniel and I re-entered the main hall, the tension was palpable. Gregory cleared his throat, addressing the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the interruption. We've had a situation arise that requires our immediate attention. I'm afraid we'll have to cut the evening short." A chorus of murmurs rippled through the guests. I could feel their eyes on me, questioning, accusing. My cheeks burned with a mix of shame and anger. Suddenly, Adelaide's voice rang out from the top of the grand staircase. "Oh, don't let me spoil your fun." All heads turned. Adelaide stood there, her hair disheveled, a half-empty wine bottle clutched in her hand. She looked wild, unhinged. "Mother," Daniel said, his voice low and warning, "please don't do this." But Adelaide was beyond reason. She descended the stairs, her eyes locked on me. "You," she spat, "you little upstart. You think you can waltz in here and destroy everything I've built?" I stood my ground, even as my heart raced. "Adelaide, I never wanted to destroy anything. I just wanted to be part of this family." She laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "Family? You know nothing about family, about legacy, about sacrifice." Gregory stepped forward. "Adelaide, that's enough. You're making a scene." "A scene?" she shrieked. "Oh, I'll give you a scene." Before anyone could react, Adelaide hurled the wine bottle. It sailed past my head, missing me by inches, and shattered against the wall behind me. Red wine splattered across the pristine white paint like blood. Gasps and screams filled the air. Daniel pulled me close, shielding me with his body. But I gently pushed him aside, facing Adelaide head-on. "Why?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. "Why do you hate me so much?" For a moment, Adelaide's mask slipped. I saw pain, fear, and something that looked almost like regret flash across her face. But then the hatred returned, fiercer than ever. "Because you're everything I never got to be," she hissed. "Young, free, loved for who you are instead of what you represent. Do you have any idea what it's like to spend your entire life living up to someone else's expectations?" The room fell silent. Even the guests seemed to be holding their breath. Gregory's voice, when he spoke, was filled with a quiet fury I'd never heard before. "Adelaide, that's enough. You've gone too far this time." He turned to face the stunned crowd. "I apologize, everyone. It seems my wife is unwell. Please, enjoy the rest of your evening. The Finnegan family thanks you for your understanding." As security discreetly led Adelaide away, her sobs echoing through the hall, Gregory approached Daniel and me. "Ella," he said, his voice heavy with emotion, "I owe you an apology. I should have seen what was happening, should have put a stop to it long ago." I shook my head, feeling suddenly exhausted. "You couldn't have known." Gregory's eyes were sad. "Perhaps not, but I should have. Adelaide's behavior, it's been building for years. I just didn't want to see it." He straightened, his face set with resolve. "I want you both to know that I intend to separate from Adelaide. Her actions tonight, and everything leading up to it, are unforgivable." Daniel gasped, "Dad, are you sure?" Gregory nodded. "It's long overdue, son. And Ella," he turned to me, "I hope you can forgive us. Forgive me for everything you've endured." I felt tears welling up in my eyes. "Of course, Gregory. But before I could finish, a commotion erupted near the entrance. Adelaide had broken free from security and was storming back into the hall, her face a mask of fury. "You think this is over?" she screamed. "You think you can just cast me aside like yesterday's trash? I made this family what it is." As she lunged towards us, time seemed to slow. I saw the glint of something metallic in her hand, a corkscrew, its point aimed directly at me. In that moment, everything hung in the balance. My life, my future with Daniel, the fate of the Finnegan family, it all came down to what happened in the next few seconds. As Adelaide closed in, I made a split-second decision. I wouldn't cower. I wouldn't run. Whatever came next, I would face it head-on, just as I had every other challenge since joining this family. I stood my ground, staring into Adelaide's eyes, silently daring her to do her worst. As Adelaide lunged at me, time seemed to slow. I saw the glint of the corkscrew, heard Daniel's shout of alarm, felt the collective gasp of the crowd. But I stood my ground, my eyes locked on Adelaide's. In that moment, something shifted. Adelaide's face crumpled, the fury giving way to anguish. The corkscrew clattered to the floor as she collapsed, sobbing uncontrollably. "I'm sorry," she wailed. "I'm so sorry. I've ruined everything." The silence that followed was deafening. I looked around at the stunned faces of the guests, at Gregory's mix of relief and sorrow, at Daniel's concern. Then, surprising even myself, I knelt beside Adelaide. "It's okay," I said softly, placing a hand on her shoulder. "It's over now." Security gently led Adelaide away, and as the commotion died down, I felt a wave of exhaustion wash over me. Daniel wrapped his arms around me, and I leaned into his embrace. "It's really over," I whispered. 1 year later, I stood in the vineyard, cradling my swollen belly as I watched the sun set over the rows of grapevines. So much had changed since that fateful night. Adelaide had gone to a rehabilitation center, finally confronting the demons that had driven her for so long. Gregory had made good on his promise to separate, but he'd also shown compassion, ensuring Adelaide had the help she needed. As for me and Daniel, we'd thrown ourselves into the family business with renewed passion. My commoner's palate, as Adelaide had once sneered, turned out to be a blessing. The wine I'd selected for the gala, the one that had sparked so much drama, had become a runaway hit. Ella's Blend, as we'd named it, was now the flagship wine of the Finnegan estate. Its success had opened doors I never thought possible, allowing us to modernize the winery while respecting its rich history. "There you are." Daniel's voice pulled me from my reverie. He joined me, wrapping an arm around my waist. "How are my two favorite people doing?" I smiled, placing his hand on my belly. "We're perfect, just enjoying the view." "It's beautiful, isn't it?" he mused. "You know, I never truly appreciated all this until you came along." I leaned into him, feeling a surge of love and gratitude. "It's more than I ever dreamed of." Just then, we heard a car approaching. My heart skipped a beat as I recognized the vehicle. "She's here," I whispered. Daniel squeezed my hand. "Are you sure about this?" I nodded. "It's time." We walked to the house, arriving just as Adelaide stepped out of the car. She looked different, softer somehow, the hard edges of bitterness worn away by time and introspection. "Ella, Daniel," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Thank you for having me." I stepped forward, taking her hands in mine. "Welcome home, Adelaide." Her eyes filled with tears as she took in my pregnant form. "Oh, my dear, you look radiant." As we led her inside, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The journey had been hard, filled with pain and conflict, but it had led us here, to understanding, to forgiveness, to family. Later that evening, as we sat around the dinner table, Gregory and Rosemary joining us in a show of unity, I looked at the faces of my family. My hand found Daniel's under the table, and I felt our child kick, as if sensing the moment's significance. Adelaide raised her glass of sparkling cider. "To new beginnings," she said, her voice thick with emotion. As we echoed her toast, I realized that this messy, complicated, beautiful family was everything I'd ever wanted. We'd been through fire, but we'd emerged stronger, our bonds tempered by adversity. The future stretched out before us, as rich and complex as the finest wine, and I couldn't wait to savor every moment of it. As the conversation flowed around me, I caught Adelaide's eye. She gave me a small, genuine smile, one of gratitude, of acceptance, of hope, and I knew in that moment that everything we'd endured had been worth it. This was my family now, in all its imperfect glory, and I wouldn't have it any other way.